All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crossfire with SB and Gabi. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm solid.
Solid. Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming show in a minute here, but first let's do a shout out to our sponsors. First and foremost, we have Smirnoff Ice. You got yours today? Yes, you do. And we got ReadyGo.ca, ReadyGo Garb. I see you're rocking your shirt today. Continuing on with the contest for the saying on the show. So go to ReadyGo.ca, go to the About Us tab, scroll to the bottom, and you'll see all the details on the November contest. The winner gets $50 coupon code plus 10% off the store for life. And we got to think about another contest coming up, but we'll announce that shortly. But start thinking about that, Gabi. We got to do that. And anyway, recognizing the Patreon members. Patreon members, Tier 1, Brandon Irwin and Jorn Harold Hebu. Tier 2, Sean Russell and Bernie Marcocha. Thank you guys for that. And you guys got a sneak peek of the Gabriela Vasconcelos video, and you're probably going to get a sneak peek of this one. So, Gabi, we got Neil Pickup coming on the show. That's a great guest. And
It is.
We have so many avenues we can go down. We can talk about the league, the process, the origins. We can talk about his history as an arm wrestler. We can do all kinds of stuff. But you'll see that in about 30 seconds from right now. Well, guys, welcome to Arm Crossfire. A little bit different format than you guys have seen in the past, but I'm going to be the little tiny guy on the screen unless something happens during the recording process where it blows me up and there's 3 screens on here. But otherwise, this is how it's going to be. Mr. Neil Pickup, welcome to the show.
How you doing, lads? Thank you very much for having me on. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks for coming on, man. It's an honor to have you here. So we obviously have a lot of stuff we want to talk about. But, I mean, let's start off with everybody knows you now as the guy kind of behind the World Arm Wrestling League and announcing and being one of the faces and also being a host of your podcast. But can you talk a little bit about your history in the sport of arm wrestling as a competitor and kind of segueing into what you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. I started arm wrestling late 1986. I was just a puppy, just a young lad. I had a background, and I've always been involved in fight sports, combat sports. So I was fighting back then, like boxing, Muay Thai, back-to-back, which was the early forerunner, as you'll probably know, of MMA. Yeah. Just loved competing in all kinds of visceral sport, contact sport, particularly fight sports, strength sports, anything like that. Went to an event, met a guy there. I was fighting one of his guys. And he was a higher grading than me. I won the fight based on strength. That evening we went just in the bar. We were having a drink with the dads. My dad was there, and this guy's coach was there. And he said, "Oh yeah, good fight today." I was a bit at first. My dad was like, "What's he interested in?" And he was just saying, "Yeah, you did well today. You're obviously pretty strong." And typical young kid, you're full of yourself. So I said, "Oh yeah, I'm pretty strong." Anyway, we got chatting and this, that, and the other. Later on, this guy starts arm wrestling. And I sort of walked over there looking around, I was interested in it. And he said, "You want to try?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." So I got on the table with him, messed around a little bit, and he seemed really impressed. He said, "Look, you're really, really strong. You should get into arm wrestling." I said, "What, is it a real sport?" And he said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "I'll tell you a secret. We're doing a film, and this film's going to be called Over the Top. It's got Sylvester Stallone. And we're doing some qualifiers. Gave me a couple of tickets. Come along to the qualifier. I'm going to hold it in Manchester." So I went along to the qualifier. I competed in the qualifier. I had to get my dad to sign a waiver. I was only a kid, as I say. I wasn't at the 18 age limit. So, yeah, got in there, entered the event, did really well. A lot of people there were sort of making a big song and dance about the fact that I was a kid and I was beating men. And the rest is history. Just got into it from there and really took off. My dad took me out to the finals at the Hilton, so we went over to watch that. Couldn't compete there, but I loved the experience. Didn't love the fact that it went on till friggin'. I mean, a lot of people maybe don't know that event went on forever I mean, it was like early hours of the morning stuff, ridiculous. I was knackered. There was big breaks. They do film, and it was pretty poor in that respect. But I loved the whole experience of it. Just enjoyed being there. Nobody knew anything about me. I was just a kid out there with my dad. But the bug bit deep. I loved it. So when I got back, that was it. It was way ingrained. I mean, you guys know how it is. It's like a mafia. Once you're in, you're in. You know what I mean? So I couldn't stop. I was obsessed. Started trying to look up anything I could. And at that time, there was very little arm wrestling in the UK. There was bits of things came up. I went to do some events in the UK. Competed in those, got my ass handed to me by top lads, guys like Clive Lloyd, who was a really top puller back in the day, the Booth brothers, Norman James, all guys who were at that time pretty dominant forces. I just sort of worked my way up, like everybody else, just eating humble pie more than I was winning. As time went on, started getting results, and when my time came, it came hard. I didn't lose, and that was pretty much it. I think a lot of that was down to I have genetic ability for the sport, and I also sought out people to train with. When we went to major tournaments, I'd seek out guys I did work with guys like Brian Shea, Wayne Burns, Redden, so many. I can't even, Cobra, Andreas Rundstrom from Sweden. So many of the old guard guys, that I was lucky enough that they took me under the wing, particularly guys like Cobra, to be honest. Brian Shea was a great lad, Redden. Spent a lot of time with me, helped me with things. So when I came back to the UK, I felt like I had a little bit of an advantage. And my sort of background in ground fighting and things like that, I was fascinated by that all my life. So you start to look for your own techniques, styles, ways of doing things. And I started to sort of piece together my own styles with bits that I learned. I suppose everybody does the same thing. But that was quite effective. It worked for me. So I started to incorporate my own thing into bits that I've learned from other people and create my own little style, really. And that worked out pretty well. So I've been in the sport for, as I say, 30 years plus. I've won some, I've lost some. Long career, enjoyed myself. Managed to compete all over the world and met some great people. Really lifelong friends. People think it's all about winning in arm wrestling. For me, it's more the journey more than anything else. I've loved doing it. I do love doing it. I love being involved with it. I can go. I'm the geek. I can go and I'm not sitting doing anything. I like to sometimes just go and sit at a show, and I'll sit there all day. I'll show up at Worlds at 8 in the. Ryan.
I know.
These things, they're long days. I can go at 8:30 in the morning and come back at 11 o'clock at night when the trophies are given out. I don't give a shit. I love it.
Yeah. So you got a bunch of world titles along the way?
Yeah. I've been lucky enough to win some stuff. Lost a few too.
Yeah, me too. As we know. So fast forward a whole bunch of years, you end up starting up a promotion.
Yes.
Which is was one of the most popular and kind of sought after places to compete for a very long time in Arm Wars. So how did that all come about?
Well, to be honest, mate, the forerunner of Arm Wars was a thing called the Iron Arm. The Iron Arm UK was the sort of original. I'm going to go out there and say that I'm the originator of the Supermatch format in arm wrestling. I really believe that to be the case. We started with that in about 1991, 92. And to the best of my knowledge, nobody had done anything like that. And I went to World Championships in Geneva 92. As I say, just a kid, so nobody really knew anything about me. I hadn't got any accolades, apart from, I spent a lot of time talking to Cobra Rhodes out there. I knew some, we had mutual friends. I've met some people out there, the Swedes and so on, that he was hanging with. And I had this thing in my mind where I was always a pretty confident kid. And as I say, the background in the fight sports thing, I thought, this is good. Arm wrestling's good, but it's kind of informal in some ways. It's there's too much formality in the sport as it was then. For example, the thing that I noticed a great deal at that time was the difference with professional fighting that I was watching and enjoying, and what we were doing in arm wrestling. And arm wrestling, it was okay. England number 2642 to the table. When you went to watch a fight, you were watching a character. You know, you may see a guy get his ass handed to him, but if you liked his character, you wanted to watch it. So I sort of did a little presentation there. It was probably quite shit. I didn't know what I was doing. But I was just making the point that I thought that there was an opportunity for elite arm wrestlers, the best arm wrestlers. And I used Cobra as an example, and another guy that we used to have, unfortunately, he sadly passed away, a guy called Rambo Rod Lynette, really obsessed arm wrestler, super strong guy, one of the best to ever do it, certainly for the UK. I used him as an example, and I said, you know, you get characters like this, you can promote the sport one-on-one. And I think it's a stronger way of marketing the sport, certainly to sell to a wider consumer base. So the grassroots of the sport remains as it is. The main draw tournament, no, it ain't broke, so it doesn't need to be fixed. But what you should do is look at a way of elevating the status of the sport globally by putting focus on the top guys. And I still believe that. So I thought, look, to cut a long story short, I got like no traction. You know, the sport was quite, and still is in some ways, but it was quite cliquey. And with that kind of organisation, particularly the big global organisations, there's often a real clique around them. And no, you know, I'm just a fat kid from England, so nobody really gave a shit. So I didn't really get any headway with that. So I figured, look, if I'm going to make an impression here, I better do it myself. So I came back to the UK and started my own thing. It's called the Iron Arm, and it was one-on-one. We did main draw tournaments, which were almost like a support to Supermatch arm wrestling. And we used the top guys in the UK, and we invited over top guys from abroad. You know, we had guys like, you know, Svetan Gashevsky, people like that who were, you know, it was good. It worked. People loved the fact. What it did do that I noticed straight away is attract notoriety for those individuals. People who'd never known who the hell they were would be speaking about this guy, this girl, that girl, or the, you know, and we had everything covered. We did ladies matches, we did male matches, we did from bantamweights up to super heavyweights. Didn't matter as long as it was about the match. You know what I mean? And for me, it is about the match. Arm wrestling, fighting, it's about the match. If you've got a great match, it works. If you've got a mismatch, everybody's bored. And it's the same now. Guys that you see that, you know, you look at the UFC and you can go and look at a card and you're sat there in the undercard and there's half the stadium's empty, half the stadium's full. And then they say Clay Guida's fighting and everybody in the goddamn place cheers. Mm-hmm. Because you know what? He's going to go out on his shield and everybody knows it. And he's never been in a boring fight. And that's what we're looking for. It was to just try and capture that essence of one-on-one competition. And for me, that's what it is, you know. Interesting.
So, Gabi, go ahead. You were going to say something.
You give the value of, it's about matches and good matches and mismatches do harm. And I completely agree with you. Based on that, I've noticed that Wall often has mismatches. Have they brought you in to try to rejuvenate or create better matchups so that you don't have 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, 3-0?
One of the, well, to be honest, the matches that are made for World Arm Wrestling League, the intention is always to make a good match. But there is a roster of athletes, and those athletes have to be aired. They have to get matches. I think the most honest way you can address that is to say that there is a set roster at this point in time. They're trying to be as fair as they can to everyone. If I had my way, would I do it that way? Maybe not. But I don't know whether I'm right or they are. What I will say is this, Chris. I probably get 40 to 50 messages a week, every week, sometimes many more, from arm wrestlers all over the world, either putting themselves forward, which I really admire and I like. I don't mind getting those. I can't respond to everyone. I genuinely wish I could, but I just can't because there's only one of me. Or somebody will be telling me on behalf of a puller. They'll say, do you know about this guy? You know, and maybe I do. I usually do, but sometimes I don't, and I love knowing that new talent's there. What I will say is this: very, very rarely do I get that. And number one, I never get that message, and I'm annoyed that I got it. Never, you know, because somebody out there's taken the time, their time to put forward either themselves, which if you're not going to fight your own corner, who the hell is? Or they've put forward someone else that they believe is relevant and is of a required caliber. And 99.9% of the time, I get it. I can see that person is very relevant. I think, yeah, you know, that's a good arm wrestler. And I could sit here right now and name 100 to 200 arm wrestlers that I think definitely deserve to be in the spotlight with World Arm Wrestling League or other. What I'll say is this: if you were interested to get those guys into the spotlight, then everybody's got to sit back and be a little patient, you know, and allow nature to take its course a little bit, or not, but certainly give it the best opportunity we can. And I'm going to give you an example here. Look at what just happened with Gabriela Vasconcelos, who you had on the show, I believe. I haven't seen the show yet, but if Gabriela performed anything like she normally does when she comes on any interview, I love that girl. She is like the most endearing, wonderful person. Just a humble, lovely, just a great person, and obsessed with arm wrestling. You know, she's been in it since she was a kid. I've been following her closely since sort of the early 2000s. She won a double gold when she came to Manchester, actually, Trafford. I think you were there, Chris. In fact, weren't you both there? But I know Chris was. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing Chris. Yeah. That was not supposed to be a mismatch. Now, here's where I get piss off the world and get shot. Bearing in mind, Gabriela, if you're watching this, I love you. I think you're great. And I think you were the stronger girl. And I actually picked you to win. I thought you would win. I didn't think you'd win like that. And I didn't plan that you would win like that. And I actually think she was so powerful, and Sarah hadn't been contested in that way for so long, that she damaged Sarah in round one. And from then it wasn't a match. And Sarah wasn't even sure how much damage she'd done. But at the end of the night, we went for a drink in town. Gabby was there. Sarah was there. Sarah couldn't lift her fucking arm. That wasn't.
I'm sorry to. We did everything you have said about Gabriela is absolutely how she presented herself on the show. And yeah, we knew that it was not meant to be a mismatch, and there was pretty evenly divided on who thought who was going to win. In fact, if you went on the fan poll, I think Sarah was actually way ahead, wasn't she not?
Huge favourite. And everybody who spoke to, you know, I had prominent members of the World Arm Wrestling League organisation say to me earlier that day when we were doing the interviews, the athlete walks through. I spent some time with Gabby at the table that afternoon to try to give her a little bit of insight into the nuances of World Arm Wrestling League, because the format's different. The setups, the disparate elements that go to make up the match are different. So I wanted to get her on there and just walk her through some of those things. And Wagner, both of them. But I'd done that just because I wanted it to be the best match possible. I'm not emotionally attached to the outcome of that match or any other match, and that's something I was going to make sure I let everybody know tonight. I really don't care, and I don't mean this in a nasty way, but I really don't give a shit if you win an arm wrestling match or not. Not because I like you or don't like you. It's actually exactly the opposite. Your career in World Arm Wrestling League, your career in arm wrestling, does not revolve around a win or a loss in one friggin' arm wrestling competition. If it does, we might as well all give up, because I don't know about you guys, but I've had my ass handed to me many times. And I haven't met an arm wrestler yet who hasn't, ever, you know. So everybody, I think, needs to calm down a little bit and stop getting too worked up when they see an arm wrestler win or lose. It's not necessarily about that. What I would say is that I had going back to what I was saying, I had guys from World Arm Wrestling League, prominent members of that crew, saying to me, has Gabby even got a chance? Has Gabby in this? And I'm like, don't worry about that. Trust me, she's in this. I said, Gabby will be fine. The only thing that can work against Gabriella is the fact that she is not used to this format. In terms of her capability, is she competitive? Yes, she is. Is she going to win? I don't know. I think she will, but I think it'll be a battle. Well, I was wrong. It wasn't a battle. But I do believe that there's more there than meets the eye. I think people watch a match and they don't look at the backstory. And as I say, I've seen a lot of arm wrestlers. I've seen arm wrestlers get beaten. I've seen arm wrestlers get tired. Sarah was hurt, really hurt. Her arm was in a bad way. And I think she did damage in the very first hit of the very first round. And she didn't know how bad that damage was. And that's not to detract from Gabby. It was Gabby that hurt her.
That's how it goes. I mean, that's part of the game, right? I mean, you have to be prepared for all-out war. And, man, that, you know what? All things considered, I think Chris and I both agree that that was probably the most entertaining and enjoyable match of the card, perhaps.
Fuck entertaining. For me, a lot of matches were entertaining. It was eye-opening.
Well, yeah.
I came out of that card, and I stated on the show with Gabby that I believe not only is she the best female arm wrestler, I believe she's the best arm wrestler in the world, period, man or woman, because her next rival is, the gap between her and her rivals are so much bigger than any man right now.
I don't agree with that, Chris. I'll tell you why. Because Egla Vutkute still exists. Egla Vutkute may be able to beat Gabriella right now, tonight. Walk in a house, bang on the garage door, and whip her. I don't know. She may.
Yeah.
We're talking about a girl who's got a winning record against Gabby.
In the past.
Now, Gabby, I think the last time they pulled may have won left-handed, which is not Egla's favourite arm. You could argue that Gabby's right is not her favourite arm. But if I was, what I would say is this: why, if that was the case, why does Gabriella cut weight?
I don't believe she wanted to cut weight. What did she voluntarily want to cut weight?
Yes.
But
she didn't know that.
Let's dispel a few myths, because this is a good time to do it, because straight from the horse's mouth, and the missus tells me I'm a horse. Now then, look at that. Chris ain't having any. He's like, no, not even on a warm day.
No, won't even smile at you. Listen, there it is.
Yeah. Hey, here's myth number one. Okay, Mythbusters. World Arm Wrestling League want Gabriela Vasconcelos and Sarah to lose weight. Okay? That is not true. Not at all. How that goes down is this. Last year in Atlanta, Sarah shows up at the finals. She says, I want to get back into arm wrestling. I want to get back, and I want to be here next year. Okay? So those conversations start then, and World Arm Wrestling League are interested. Obviously, Sarah's got massive pedigree. She's in the States and is, at that time, an American citizen. Fabulous arm wrestler, looks the part, everything great. Okay, who's going to match her with? Because she's an animal. And everybody she pulls, she just run through. Right. And I'm like, I got someone. Matched these girls before. It was a great match. Arm wars. Yeah, it'll be good. I'll just have to get her. Okay, can you start having those conversations? Yeah, I'll check it out. So I get hold of Gabby. And we talk about it, and she says, yeah, in theory, if Sarah comes back, I'm up for it. So we wind the clock forward, and we are talking from June, maybe May, June of this year. And I'm saying, look, that's the situation. And World Arm Wrestling League aren't confirming or denying that there's going to be that match. It's just right on the radar. They're saying, okay, yeah, we'd love to do that. But I'll tell you what, if we do it, a match of that significance, it's going to be for to introduce the heavy ladies. It'll be at the end of the year, and we'll put it right front and center as a main marquee match in Atlanta again. Perfect. Great. So I get hold of Gabriella, and I say, Gabby, we're on. Atlanta, September. How's that? And she's typical Gabby. Yeah, she pulled the devil in straps. Yeah, I'm up for it. But one stipulation. What's that? Well, I'm cutting weight for the World Championships, right? And Sarah's a big girl. And I said, okay. She says, yeah, she's like 90 kilos right now. I've been watching her online. I said, all right. So where does the match make sense for you? And she said, well, I'm going to under 70 kilos, 154 and under at Worlds. So I'm not coming in at like 75, 80 kilos and Sarah being 90 kilos. And I said, okay, let me speak to Sarah and I'll see what happens. So I get hold of Sarah that day. I send a message to Sarah. I say, Sarah, Gabby match is on. But she wants to know where you're at weight-wise because she's cutting weight for Worlds and she wants it at below a certain weight class, not 90 kilos, which I believe you're at now. I said, where are you now? Sarah says, I'm like 92, but I'm cutting weight for Zloty Tour, which is going to be a 75. So right about then, I'll be maybe 82, 80 kilo. I go back to Gabriella. I said, Gabby, that's where she's going to be. Gabby says, can she do 80 kilos? I said, I don't know. Find out. Straight back to Sarah. I have them both on Messenger. Sarah says, yeah, I can do 80. It should be around 80 for then. Okay. I go back to Gabby. She can do 80. Bang. Match. There it is. That's how that came about. So the reality is, Gabby wanted 80 kilos. Fact. End of.
Yeah. And we do. I do not know where that came from. But we did apologize for talking about it in the sense that we thought the WAL was behind that.
Yeah.
I know where I got the information from.
Mm-hmm.
It was another podcast, and they also have come out and apologized for that statement.
Sure.
That being said, is there going to be a super heavyweight class for women in WAL?
There is now. That was it.
Look,
if Gabby had said, yeah, match is on, I don't care whether Gabriella weighs 110 kilos.
Okay.
Gabriella's not getting matches because she's a good-looking woman. Gabriella's not getting matches because she's any physical. I don't care what she looks like, and World Arm Wrestling League don't care what she looks like. She got the match because she's 28-time world champion, and she is a lovely, endearing character. How can you not love her? I mean, she's ace. Yeah. Anybody that listens, that woman talk for 5 minutes. If you don't love that girl, you need to give your head a wobble.
100%.
She's a fantastic person. So character set wise, she's great. She's a just elite arm wrestler. I mean, as I said, I don't agree with what Chris said in terms of she's the best of the best. I think that is we can go into that more if you like in a minute, but I think she's a great female arm wrestler. I think we're in a situation where she is the dominant arm wrestler of her generation in her class. That's what I'll say.
I think the fun part is that we can try to find out if she is the best of the best right now. That's the fun part.
Good try, mate.
Yeah.
I've already got. We got a short list of guys. I'm speaking to Makieva, Irina. Irina's got a lot of injury issues. But let me tell you now, Irina is up for coming to World Arm Wrestling League if she can move past them. But she's got serious injury concerns. We're going to stay in touch. She's in touch with me now. I'm good friends with Irina. She's already speaks great English. She is the best female arm wrestler of all time, pretty much unequivocally. I mean, who's beaten her? People have had odd pins against her, but I don't care who it is. She just whips them. So if we were saying who's the very, very best, it's Irina Makieva.
I'd love to see that.
Of all times.
And I know Gabby would, because Gabby's been hunting her.
Well,
she's chasing her down.
In fairness, I mean, in North America, there's a lot of people talking about putting Gabriella, and I don't want this. I don't agree with this. I don't want it. There's a lot of talk about putting Gabriella against men.
No, man. For me, right. I'm you can view this how you want. Am I sexist? I don't know, but I'll tell you this. I don't agree that you should have a lady pulling men. I think it risks injury for the girl. I just don't think an upper echelon arm wrestler like that should risk their career. These guys are taking it serious. They love arm wrestling as much or more than anybody else. Why should that lady be forced to risk injury just because she's ace?
Oh yeah, I agree. But she seemed open. She seemed open to the idea.
Oh, I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that Gabriella would slap around a hell of a lot of men, probably up to I want to say 65, maybe even 70 kilos. And I'm not talking about bloody, the best in the world. I'm talking about decent, solid gamers, regional level pullers. I've pulled Gabby a few times. She's rock strong. She's not that strong. She's not coming in and smacking about Tony Katowski. She's just not going to happen. Reality check. But what I'm getting at there is, I think that whoever is involved in that arm wrestling match doesn't win. If you've got a man who takes that arm wrestling match, win, lose, or draw, and personally speaking, right, there are guys that view this a different way. And I'll tell you where this comes from the fight sport background. You can get in that, you'll get guys that are saying, oh yeah, male are the dominant sex and all this thing. Yeah, be that as it may, physically stronger, all those things true, yeah. But I'll show you female fighters that I'll tell you this. You get into a cage with that girl, you better be ready to fight. Because she definitely is. And if you're not, you will come out in bad shape, maybe choked unconscious. Trust me, that's a thing.
Yeah, you say no one wins if you have a cross-gender match, but I disagree. I think the audience wins. I don't know how big of a female demographic Wall has, but if she beat up on a 70-kilo guy, I can tell you that would rip through right through YouTube. I mean, you would have women sharing it with women. I mean, I
think you just answered your own question, though, Chris. It would rip right through YouTube, and that's what it is. It's a viral YouTube clip. It's not a... No. It's supposed to represent the upper echelon or the elite of the sport, and that's what I would keep it, So, in a way, it's just the fact that for Gabriella, I think you've got to treat it very much for what it is. I'm not saying that you need to be super serious on arm wrestling, very much the opposite. But you do have to let it be known that it is about reaching your optimum potential, and the people that you're showcasing are very serious about what they do. They're very focused on that sport specifically. And I can't overplay the fact that you'll have a situation where ultimately there's more risk involved for Gabriella or whoever the lady is in that match than there necessarily needs to be. And I personally, and this is just, I'm not World Arm Wrestling League. I'm a person that is working for them and associated with them. I'm a fan of World Arm Wrestling League. But I'm also a fan of Gabby, and I'm also a fan of a lot of top lasses in the sport, and I wouldn't like to see them have to do that or feel like they needed to do that. That's just my take on it, guys.
You know what? I agree with you, because we have a lot of controversy happening across all sports right now with transgender people competing, men transitioning to women and doing that, and testosterone seems to be the great game changer amongst all of those sports. And yeah, I mean, the only match I'd want to see, and it's only a gimmick, is Gabriella versus Chris Gabi right-handed.
See,
but that is it.
If she wins that,
Gabriella couldn't beat Chris. That's all you know. I mean, Chris, you know what? She'd have a bet. And the funny thing is, and I mean this with respect, but Chris is actually tailor-made for Gabs, because Chris, from what I've seen, he's a guy that lets people initiate. So ordinarily, if I was training someone to beat Chris, I would say, look, he's powerful, but he's got limited range. He's in a way a slow Jeff Hale. He's got limited leverage. He's very powerful in the hook. He's going to try and stop you, get the brakes on, and then tractor you back up, outlast you, and outmuscle you. Now, Gabriella, from my experience, if you let her get where she wants to be, it's one of those things where when you pull Gabby or Sarah or Egler or any of the top girls in the world, if you sort of condition yourself mentally for, okay, this is going to be kind of cool, how's this going to feel? And then they go, and you think, oh shit, that's more than I thought. And then if you back them off a little bit more and they get into the sweet spot, and they know you're not a dick and you're not going to rip into them, they'll really unleash it on you. And It's like almost when you come home late from the pub, drunk, after you've been to the lap dancing bar and your wife stood at the door. And she's like, where have you been, fatty? And you're like, nowhere. And then you get in there and you're not ready to fight and she kicks your head in. You know, it's not that you couldn't defend yourself against your wife, but she wants to kick your head in. And you're not sure you do. You just want to go to bed. You know, and it's a similar situation. When you let one of those ladies get into that position, God, they feel ridiculously strong. So, I mean, I read something the other day. Ron Bath had put on something about, you know, he couldn't pull Gabriella up.
Yep.
Well, all I'm going to say is this, Ron, if that's the case, mate, you need to get back to training, son.
So to summarize, you're advocating a Gabby match for Wall next year. Is that what?
No. What I was saying there is I don't think that I wouldn't like to see Gabriella pull. If you, I'll tell you what it is, right? If you really wanted to pull Gabriella Vasconcelos, she'll pull you. I don't have any doubt. Did you mention this to her at all?
Oh, yeah. She's up for it. Yeah,
is she? Really? Oh shit! So she wants to pull Chris in Wall.
She not necessarily in Wall, but she does. She's willing to have a match with him as an exhibition somewhere.
To defend myself a little bit more, my desire is to take care of the venue. I want to feel how strong she is. I don't necessarily want to pull her on the big stage and on the camera because I am fucking strong. And I don't want to be embarrassed. Well, I don't care if I get embarrassed, but I definitely do not want to embarrass her. I just want to, maybe on a practice table, or I just want to train with her. I would just like to see how strong this female competitor is. Yeah. So that's where my mind is. I don't want to, let's face it, I'd beat her. I believe I can catch her, and I can, you know, without disrespect.
You would beat Gabriella. You can say that openly. I'd be very surprised.
It's just a question
of beat Gabriella. But if you really wanted to train with Gabs, if you wanted to pull her, I know she'd be well up for that. You know, as long as she knows you're not going to rip her back or try and hurt her, you know, stonewall her, not a problem. And she is strong, mate. Strong. Yeah. Like when you let her go, it's one of those feelings where, you know, you think, wow.
And that's what I feel. I've never felt a female arm wrestler put tension on my arm to the point where I'm somewhat worried. I believe she can do it, and I'd love to feel it because I think that's freaking cool. Do I want to do the big stage? No, because on the big stage, her or I will not win. The only way we win is if I stage it and make it really look good, and I work my ass off and beat her through a war. But I'm not going to do that, and anything shy of that embarrasses her or I, and I don't think it's good for the sport.
I think it's as you say, like as a YouTube clip. Would it probably go viral? Look, let me put it another way. There are guys, right, that are 25 stone, no idea what they're doing in arm wrestling, but can press a 150 kilo Austrian oak. And if they put their arm up against Gabriella, she will smack the out of them. Now that, you know, would that go back? Yes. You know, look at Hapthor versus Devon. Now, for anybody in the sport, were they impressed by that? No. You know, Hapthor is a strong man. So it does what he's doing? Yeah. No. Yeah, that wasn't. Devon didn't have to pull hard. You know, I must have pulled 100 elite strongmen. And in honesty, if you take Vitautas Lalas out of the equation, I've never struck. I mean, I pulled Brian Shaw 6 months ago in Leeds.
Could you get out of his hand? Oh,
yeah. Well, whatever you want me to do.
Wow.
You know.
Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't know where to apply the pressure.
Could I if you left Brian with me for a day, could I at the end of that day?
For sure.
Hell no. I mean, no. If Brian had the slightest inkling of what he was doing,
exactly,
you wouldn't have a prayer. The man is inhumanly strong, and he's built for the game, and he's mobile. You know, and the other thing with Brian is he's intelligent. He joins it up quick, so he's very, very strong. I mean, Eddie Hall and Brian backstage went for it. Like, really went for it at Giants with the, you know, raw as hell pub arm wrestling. They got on an arm wrestling table. Eddie said, "Come on, Brian, let's go for it." And there was no technique. It was raw, brute. Somebody ripped their arm off. Oh. Now, that was entertaining stuff. And that was backstage after the show. Eddie Hall.
Wow.
But we're talking absolute brute force, and and Eddie's got an idea of arm wrestling. I mean, I'm good friends with Eddie personally. We mucked about, but that's what you're in a situation where if you're a specialist in something, what are you going to do? I remember I went to Cine Combat Sports Show, and you think to yourself, oh, I can fight a bit. You fought on the ground and you've done this. And one of the fighters there who was working with toe to toe at the time was John Fitch. He's like
I know who John Fitch is. Yeah, 6
pounds, not a big guy. I'm weighing probably 220, and there's a few. Wasn't just mucking about, playing in the cage. And we thought, it'd be cool if we could just roll around a little bit with John. Holy, different league. You just couldn't do nothing with him. You try to get something on, and it's his day job. You know what I mean? For you, your heart rate's up, and he's super relaxed. He's playing. He's rolling from position to position. He's got you in a darce. You just can't get anything on. You try to go for something. He's already got 3 things in his mind. You transition. You try and escape. He's grabbed an arm. He's on you. Eat you for breakfast. You wouldn't have a prayer. Not a prayer. And that's the same situation. You're talking about a specialist in a game. You can't make that comparison.
Yeah, that's right. But for the general public, that was the most incredible thing they've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, immortal amount of hits. Ridiculous. Everybody's like, wow, this guy just, beat the mountain like it's nothing, And great. I actually felt sorry for Hapthor, if I'm honest. I really did.
Well, yeah. I mean, it kind of maybe took a little bit away from him. So it's
sure, yeah, it's like he's made to look very humble when in actuality the guy is arguably the most chaotically strong human being that's ever lived. I mean, just ridiculous. I've seen that man do things that nobody's got any right to do. You only need to speak to his peers. You speak to Brian, you speak to Eddie, you speak to any of the guys there. Guys who've got experience, Colin Bryce, Darren Sadler, who run the events, they'll tell you how strong Hapthor is. Hapthor is comedy strong, Yeah.
For my own personal interest, what is Eddie Hall's status in strongman right now? Is he actively training and competing at top levels?
No.
Or is he kind of sticking to his sort of pseudo-retirement from after he won World's Strongest Man?
Eddie's interests right now lay outside of all competitive strongman. He is not focused on that. He's focused on his acting career. He's doing very well in that environment. He seems in a good place. He looks healthier. He's a happier version of himself. There's an enormous amount of stress comes with trying to juggle in the way that he had to. Is he still strong? Oh yeah, ridiculous. You can't really attain the level of strength and also be as committed as Eddie is to being strong. He still trains hard, and he'd still do. You could still go down to Strength Asylum and he can pick up 200 plus kilos like it's a joke and rep it for 6-8 reps. He's incredibly strong. Is he anything like he was? No. I actually believe Eddie is the strongest human being that's ever drawn breath. I think at his absolute peak in terms of static strength, unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable.
Well, if you're going by the deadlift, it's for sure Eddie Hall.
You only have to look at the records he set around that time, and a lot of one of the things that I'll always cherish most is whether it be arm wrestling, fight sports, whether it be strongman, the insight you get when you're backstage, when you are encapsulated within the event itself, the lead up. We've all been to arm wrestling competitions, and the results are the results are the results, but that on the way to the tournament that day, something had gone down in your life. You've been ill a couple of days before. Most of the time you eat it up. You've been training and you're busted up. Nobody knows anything. You rarely compete when you're not injured. But when you're really close to these guys and you're working with them, they sort of know what's going down beforehand. You have a pretty good feel for who's going to do what, who's really in good form, who's got things going on. And I can tell you this, at the time when Eddie was really firing, He was biblically strong, breaking records in stupid areas with stupid amount of effort. Let me tell you, the 500, there was more there that night.
Yeah.
There was more. I mean, if you watch that, watch it back.
Oh, yeah.
No?
For sure there was.
He had another 5, 10, maybe 15 kilos in there, for sure, you know. The axle, the Apollon's axle, he 216 like a joke. You watch that. Did it look hard? Did it look like he couldn't have gone heavier? The day he did the log attempt for the 230 log, the guy had practically a broken ankle. And people think that's bullshit. And no, I'm telling you, I was with him all day. The dude could hardly walk. When he came out that evening, what Eddie's dealing with is pressure from the promoters and pressure from the general public and pressure from himself to achieve something when he knows he's got a limited time frame in which to do it.
Yeah.
So he's looking to come out, and he's got 15,000 people in an arena that have come specifically to see him do that lift. And he knows that he's capable of doing it in all areas of the game, apart from the fact that 4 days earlier, he twisted his ankle in a stupid little accident at his home. And it was majorly bad. Now, if you have a situation where you're putting a 230 log above your head and you haven't got the opportunity to adjust your feet when it goes up, that adds another layer of complexity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Personally, I wouldn't like to go out and arm wrestle on the right hand with my right foot damaged. Never mind put 230 kilos above my head. You know, so there's always a backstory. You know, and that the good fortune of being able to see that is a wonderful thing. It really is.
So just to back it up a little bit, like, how did you become? First of all, how did the World Arm Wrestling League originate, and how did you end up getting involved with it?
Okay, the first part of that, my understanding of this, and I didn't live through it, to be honest, because at that time I was working extensively with Professional Arm Wrestling League, PAL, and also with UAL, as well as doing my own thing. I had the Arm Wars in full swing at that time. Now, Game of Arms was, Dan Alani, that was in full swing then. So he had a personal relationship, business relationship with Dan Alani. He was invited along to events. Steve took interest in those events, was a genuine fan of the sport of arm wrestling, had an interest in it. How fortunate is arm wrestling that did actually present itself. The guy genuinely is interested. And for anybody who thinks it's just money, it actually isn't with Steve. I've known him long enough and in depth enough now to know that he actually really likes it. I mean, the guy, he'll spend hours talking about it. He's interested in it, He likes watching the sport. He enjoys the sport. He's mad keen.
If he loves it, how does he justify canceling an event which people prepared for months, 2 days before?
Honestly, because you'd have to ask Steve. I'm not going to answer on Steve Kaplan's behalf. But what I'll say is this. It's very easy for people like myself and you and the other guys that have an opinion on that to believe that he did that callously and he did that with options. But when you're the individual that's putting $3 million into that production and the sponsor pulls out and they're not showing up and you're literally going to have to finance that amount of money on the day without the... And it's not just the money. It's not just the money. Let's be real here. It's the fact that the production company are not going to be in attendance. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And the venue and all those things. When you start to sit quiet for a minute, and if you can take emotion out of all these situations and think, right, okay, let's just have a reality check for a minute. That is a massive amount of money. Now, you think to yourself, okay, what do I do? And at the top of every ladder, there's a guy that's got to make tough decisions. And that can be you in your own household. There's something that happens. Might be around where your kid goes to school, or might be around anything. You take your pick. There's important decisions in life that come up every day. Now, if you're Steve Kaplan and you think to yourself, okay, we've got a finite amount of money to invest in this thing, and that's the reality of the situation. He's not a charity. He's got a finite amount of money to invest in it. And he can see all the angles. So he can see that these investors are just not there yet, but in 6 months, they very well may be. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he can't take raw emotion and personalities and individuals. He's got to try and do what he believes is right for the long game, for the end game. Okay? And to bring this more personal, I was one of the guys who had invested their own money. I didn't get paid by World Arm Wrestling League. I didn't get paid. Okay? Didn't get paid. That's a fact. I'd invested my own money. I would have been paid back. That was the plan. But I invested my money to go, paid for my flights, paid for my hotel. It was all paid for up front, booked it all done. And I didn't get any real information about it. But I know what he could see. And he could see that 6 to 9 months down the tracks, he got a second shot if he could then reinvest that money. And to be fair to the guy, you're looking at the fruits of that right now. That is what he did. He took option B. And if option B comes off and he grounds the sport and it really goes and it gets to somewhere, and when my sons grow up, they can go and be professional arm wrestlers, I'd build the man a statue, not spit on him.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't disagree. His calculations were off, or he didn't make a legit, a logical move. I'm just not sure. I'd state that he loves the sport. He's a businessman. Let's face it. He made a money.
Yeah, he is, of course.
But I'm not going to start.
Do you not like that though, Chris? Do you? What would you find? You know, I don't mind that. If I go to work every day, you better pay me. I'm not coming tomorrow.
I'm okay with whatever decision people make, whether it's moving, whether it's canceling events. My issues always come when people don't take full accountability, or they try to mask it with other adjectives. He made the right decision.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to agree that he is in love with the sport and passionate about arm wrestlers. That's where my problems come in. Did he make the right decision for him at the present and the future of arm wrestling now? Probably. It was a calculating move, and he's a businessman. I'm just not on board with him loving the sport to that degree. But of course he made the right decision.
The fact that he's probably aware of that, mate, and I'm sure a lot of, as I say, you get to a situation in life. You obviously are there already, Chris, because you don't give a shit what people think about you. You got Arthur will want to kill you. So I'm sure you're not too worried about it. I'm in a similar situation myself. Don't know whether I've got quite as many doubters as you, but I got a few. I know you're one of them. Now then, so if you're Steve Kaplan and you're in that situation, he's already probably very much at one with the fact that he's never going to convince everybody. You know what I mean? There's always going to be that guy that thinks, yeah, but he's got motivations in those other areas. And you know what? You're right to a large extent. But I think he's in a position where he sort of has to shelve that. And he's got to think, look, where are we going? What's the direction of this? Can I make it work or not? And he might not. And I think everybody has to take a decision. As you move along, you've got to think to yourself, what's the best policy? You know, is he right to do that? You obviously think he is.
Well, right or wrong, he made the decision. He had the right to make the decision. And I believe his decision was based on analysis and calculations. And he's a much more proven businessman than I am. So obviously I concede to his judgment and discretion on that point. But then I see him like disappearing, like not taking full accountability. And of course my issue isn't even with him, because I don't give a shit about him one way or the other. It's when people state that he loves arm wrestling and loves the sport. Then I kind of have an issue.
I'm going to say that. I mean, two things you just said to me there. I don't know him and I don't give a shit about him. I do know him and I do give a shit about him.
That's fair.
And I feel like, if I came to you and I said, right, Chris, and I started telling you about a guy you knew well, I'd think, I get it. And I get a lot of things in that respect. Obviously, you're a guy that is passionately, you love arm wrestling. It's your thing. Here we are, you're on a goddamn podcast. You love arm wrestling. It's what you do, right? So we get that you're passionate about that. But what I'm saying is that sometimes that can potentially make you so you get upset irrationally to a degree. I know
that-
you're very considered. I know you're thinking it through, but to a point where I've spoken to Steve at length. Was he happy about doing that? Not at all. Not at all. But he couldn't go out. If he'd have gone out and said, "Look, guys, I'm really, really sorry. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have cancelled that event," I guarantee you, there's people that are still spat thunder at him.
Of course,
They
they
some respect, you know. But
of course they would have. He couldn't have won one way or the other. It's just a question of coming out and being brutally honest and taking full accountability. It's kind of like, I just wish when it comes to the Kings move and Devin and Mike try to justify it and say why it's a great move when they really should be saying, I didn't do it in my 20s, I didn't do it in my 30s, and the reason I didn't do it is because I didn't really respect it and didn't have to do it. But now I'm at a point with injury and age that I have to do it, and I don't encourage anyone to do it because it's not optically beautiful to watch and it's not ideal. But I do it because I have to, not because I want to. But they won't say that, will they? So
are we talking Devin? Are we staying on Steve, or are we talking Devin?
Well, it's all it's all together. It's people stating one thing when it's not actually the truth.
Okay, I'm going to address that. I'm going to address both. Okay, firstly, with the Steve one, speaking to Steve personally after that event, okay? Now, bearing in mind that what I said to you before, I'd invested my money in going out there, spending time. I was actually going to take my dad and we'll stay for a few days because it always falls around his birthday, so we're going to go out there. And when I got back in touch with Steve, or they got back in touch with me, we spoke about that at length, and Steve said, obviously it caught a lot of negativity around that. He's very broad shoulders, and he's, in my experience, an extremely honest, extremely straight guy. I'm gonna say the guy is really straight. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of people, and the bloke is arrow straight. If he says things, sometimes you think, Jesus, that's a bit hard, but it's straight. So I said, look, that was bad. And you know what he said to me? Yeah, I know, but I'm going to put it right. I'm going to give it everything I can to put it right. And to be fair to the guy, if he then buggered off and didn't do that, I'd be more upset. But I'll tell you this. We're sat here tonight, and he's just done a season of shows. He's looking at doing another one next year, which is a massive investment on his time. And he doesn't need the money, mate. So I personally feel
he sees an opportunity
that he's involved.
I got to weigh in on this a little bit because I kind of I take a piece of each of what each of you are saying and I kind of put it together, in my opinion. But it's if I have somebody that is a promoter based on love of the sport alone, they might not be the right guy to be running the business that drives the sport forward.
Absolutely.
Now, there has to be some kind of return on investment. And I'm not sure what the books look like, but I can't imagine that Steve has made more money than he's put into it at this point yet.
No way.
I would just...
Even the man hasn't made any money yet.
So
is he investing in the future? Yes.
Yes. So
has he made money yet? Absolutely not.
Yeah. But I mean, I
ran Arm Wars for 12 years. We had at the peak, we averaged 9.2 million viewers a week,
which in North America is an extremely successful show.
Yeah, we were in 85 countries. We were translated into 66 languages.
Yeah. That being said, I mean, I understand, and I was upset too because I was the one that told Devin Larratt that show was canceled, and was the one that witnessed his very first reaction to it. And I was also one that had booked the tickets and went to the show, and I went anyway because there's a big tournament still happening and somebody's picking up the pieces, and you have Travis, who, ever an opportunist, was able to turn that into something that was profitable for him.
Good on him.
And I was upset at first, but as time goes by and you see what the World Arm Wrestling League has developed into, it's the biggest thing going right now. And the trajectory of it is unlike things we've seen in historical organizations or tournaments. So I do think
what it does, guys, is also it creates a signal flare. Let's say, for example, that the World Arm Wrestling League did not succeed, I'd be devastated beyond belief, because I've put an enormous amount of my time and energy into it. I folded up Arm Wars, I shelved Arm Wars, because I thought that it was a far wiser move to throw in with World Arm Wrestling League, because they had the resource to potentially deliver what I've been trying to deliver, and I'm just one man, and I don't have millions of dollars to invest in that. I did everything I could, created big debts for myself trying to make it go, but we're in a situation where ultimately the end game is to see arm wrestling. I'd love to be sat when I'm 80 years old watching arm wrestling as an established, recognized event. Not necessarily, I'm not talking about the Olympic Games, I'm talking about the UFC. I'm talking about, so you turn on the TV and everybody's talking about your top arm wrestlers. There is an ongoing, sustainable longevity to the sport that I love and I've devoted my life to. That, for me, is the utopia. It's the end game. It's the way I want to get to. And I probably would imagine you guys do too.
Absolutely. I've, as a bit of a journeyman in the sport myself, it's been a kind of a dream situation to actually get that call once in a while and show up at these events.
It's just a cool experience, Ryan.
Yeah, well, it is.
It's just fun.
And in the last year, I've been able to compete in the WAF Championships, Moldova, and the World Arm Wrestling League. Like, how does it get much better than that?
And Chris pulled PAL, Vegas.
Yeah, all three of us are invested in arm wrestling through love and passion. It's not a business venture. That's my point with Steve. He's invested, and he hasn't made money yet because it's a future investment. He's hoping there's a long game. But he's invested through business, not love. That's my only issue with this thing. Don't use Steve Kaplan and love of arm wrestling in the same sentence and think I'll be okay with it. I just don't agree with that.
Can't it be both, though, Chris? Can't it be a bit of both?
Just like he says, Steve's a straight arrow, honest man. I don't believe there's a multimillionaire out there that is completely honest and straight arrow to the T. That's why they're a multimillionaire. There's things you have to bypass and shit like that, and I understand that. But again, I digress. For the most part, I agree with Neil. And I don't have a problem with you, Neil. I think you're incredible for the sport. I just had that one issue with the interview with Devin. But other than that, you're aces. You do great things in the sport. I have no beef with you.
What was the interview thing with Devin, mate?
Not specifically with you. Not specific with you. I have an issue watching podcasts, watching sports interviews, when the interviewer is feeding generic questions and not asking tough or challenging the interviewee. For the most part, sometimes they can't because the guy will just walk off. But I just thought it was a soft interview. But maybe that was your mandate.
Mate, I really like Devin. Devin's a good lad.
No, I know you do.
He's a good bloke, and I defend the bloke. I mean, we have a laugh about the King's Move thing. We were doing a thing the other day. In fact, it got released like a week ago, right? And we were taking the mitt. He said, "Oh, you're going to love this, Neil, because you're not a fan of the King's Move." I got Michael and Devin there. No, I said, "Look, lads, I am not a fan of aesthetically the King's Move. No, I'm not. Just like I'm not necessarily a fan of watching two boxers get in a ring or two Muay Thai fighters and keep it all at range and hide behind the jab. And, it's not, is it aesthetically pleasing? No. I haven't got an issue with anybody using it. My job is to get round the jab and crack them on the jaw. If I'm in a situation where I'm in a match, and I've been in a number of matches with King's Movers, my job is to turn his palm flat, expose his bicep, and press on him, get him finished. So it's a fight sport, and if any move within there, as far as I'm concerned, do what you want to do, each to his own. Absolutely. Am I a fan of it aesthetically? No, not at all. Do I think it's mega effective? Jesus Christ, yes. One of the hardest matches of my entire career was against Greg Schneider in Arm Wars FIBO, and my arm took, we drew 3-3. I didn't even get a win. I ended up having a draw, and my arm was scrapped for about 4 months. It destroyed my arm, just trying to press on him when he was bone locked. Unbelievably difficult situation. But I had to take my hat off at the end of the night. I was thinking, God, that's effective.
Oh, for sure. Of course, it's effective. Arguably, it's the most efficient move in the sport because you don't have to use any muscle tissue. So of course,
I think you do though. I actually think I learned a lot. going through that stuff with Michael and Devon. And I also spent time with other guys. Anatoly Manasiev. Even George has strength. It's not, is he really strong? No, I don't think, in my opinion, no, he's not really strong. But he does have strength in weird areas. Areas that people don't train for. And through repetition of pulling that move, he's developed an odd set of tendon strength. And it creates problem for people. It's a difficult thing to overcome. Is it muscular strength? I don't believe it is. I think it's tendon strength more than anything else. And I think it's putting people into a bad position.
I don't even believe it's tendon strength. It's physical leverage based on your bone structure. Tendons don't even come. They come into a play only because it has to hold everything together. And yes, there has to be a little bit of conditioning there, but ultimately it's a pry bar move to fatigue your opponent down to 5%, and then you can pin him. I mean, it is what it is. Super efficient, of course, because but if everyone Kings moved, events would take 3 days, because each match would be...
They're not going to do, mate. They're just not going to do. I mean, you could say, look, if you wanted to get into a boxing match and push everybody, push everybody onto the ropes and just hold them there, or if you're in the UFC and you lean on somebody in the kick, everybody could do it, but they don't. No, they just won't. You're always going to get within arm wrestling. You get Rob Vigent Jr. He will tell you how bad. He is anti the Kings move to an unbelievable degree. I've had Devon and Rob in the same room talking about it on the same night, and it's one of the most entertaining scenarios I've ever seen in my life. Laughing myself unconscious. Brilliant. Because you've got two guys who are polar opposites in their opinions. That makes it exciting. That's good stuff.
What I find funny is Devon's pro King now. Now that he has injuries and is aging, he's pro King and claiming the King move is the best move in arm wrestling. Whether he was always pro King, he never had a problem with the King. He never professed it like he did in the last couple of years. That again is my issue.
But he's educating himself in terms of how to win. Yeah. Believe me, he's just looking for ways to win, Chris. He sees that he can be a dominant force in the sport, which he can. And he's found out if he's not as strong as another guy, but he knows he can out arm wrestle them, and that's what he's doing. Make no mistake about it. He's out arm wrestling them.
I agree 100%.
There was a video.
The move or not, he's out arm wrestling them. So if he can find a way to out arm wrestle you, it's the jab, mate. Make no mistake about it. He's staying on the outside, jabbing you, keeping you off balance. You never hit him. The bell rings, and you're furious. You go back to your corner, and you're thinking, I could have knocked that son of a bitch out if he'd stood toe to toe, but he wouldn't.
In arm wrestling, a jab would be a regrip. What they're doing is putting their hands over their head, ducking in the corner until the ref hits the bell or the other opponent is fatigued. I mean, I wouldn't equate it to a jab, but
you know why? Because after one round of it, you're screwed. He does that on you. All the bits of you don't work anymore. Your wrist and hand don't work. You're blown. You're fatigued. Most people can't deal with it. It does damage.
Which why it's
efficient,
and that's why it's efficient, because it fatigues your opponent to an incredible degree. I agree.
Yeah. So
anyway, enough of this bloody.
We got to get off of the damn Kings move because we have beat it to death.
Yeah. I'm sick of it.
I got some good questions for Neil, and I want to try to get them in. You mentioned earlier, Neil, that you believe when you started arm wrestling you were genetically gifted, and I don't doubt that. But I met you a couple times, and I noticed that you do have for your size, you much like myself, you have a very small hand. So when you say you're genetically gifted, whereabouts do you feel you were genetically gifted?
My wrist, Chris. I have my wrist, and I have two areas of real. Right, I'm gonna break this down further. When I say genetically gifted, there are elements within me as a person which I've known about for a long period of time that make me genetically dissimilar to a lot of people. The way that I arm wrestle is governed by that, and is built around that. When I was saying at the start that I would do things that lent themselves towards where my strengths were, I think everybody should always do that. We can go back to that in a minute. But I am very, very fast. I've got very, very high, fast twitch fiber. Loose to tight. I can go really quick in a lot of different angles. Now, you can say that there's static strength and then there's explosive strength. I'm very much the latter. The explosivity is a key thing. I could fire bullets, and bullets drop monsters. There's a lot of Russians that can attest to that. They may be pissed that they lost, but they lost and they didn't know why. So the real situation was there that my wrist was very strong. Most of the guys that had a lot of experience with me in those days, guys like Patton, Cobra, Engin, they would always speak about my hand as well. They said your hand control is phenomenal for a guy with a tiny hand.
I always noticed that I don't think I've ever seen you lose in the strap. Usually when a man can struggle or has a small hand, but in the strap wins 99% of the time, that's indicative of a superior wrist, which is exactly what you claim, which makes sense.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, mate. If I could get to a strap with pretty much anybody, I think the only guy that's beaten me in a strap, and I'm going to say he was bloody lucky, because I actually do believe I pinned him, and I think if you watch the video back, I pinned him, but my very good friend Dave Hicks didn't call it, and if he didn't call it, it probably wasn't a pin, because Dave usually is right on it. And there's a bad mother fluffer, let me tell you. Dave Hicks in his day, off. That was Jerry Carteret at the UAL, and I weighed up 176, and he was bigger than that. But what I'll say is, in the strap, yeah, he got me. Very, very few guys, and I'm not talking about now when I'm a bum. I'm talking about when I was on my game. When I was on my game, very, very few people beat me in a strap. Oh, the other guy that has beaten me in a strap is Jason Vale. He got me in a strap once. Shocked the shit out of me. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe I lost from there. Fair play to him. I would have bet my house that I was going to beat him, and he beat me. So, yeah.
Yes or no answer. Is the 2005 national representing jersey worn by the UK the coolest arm wrestling jersey to ever be worn?
You know what? I think we've had some really good kit, mate. I really do think over the period of time that I've been in the sport, I know 3 or 4 shirts that I thought were really good. You're proud to wear them. Really, really nice kit, you know.
Yeah, you guys don't fuck around when it comes to jerseys. I'll tell you that. Beautiful.
Yeah, we've had some good stuff, mate. We really have.
Yeah. Do you guys have a chance against the All Blacks?
Oh, I suppose in any sport there's a chance. Yes, I think we have a chance. If I was going to bet, I'm betting All Blacks probably.
I actually think
they look exceptional at the moment.
Yeah,
it's probably. Yeah, it's a long shot, innit? You know, it's a long shot, but who knows? You know, there's the guys on the field are probably a lot more committed than I believe they are. So let's see. Stranger things have happened, mate. Look at that. Look at South Africa with the All Blacks when nobody thought you could stop Lomu, and then all of a sudden, Hughes found the best days and picks him up and drops him on his ass, and history's written.
England's got big forwards and May can fly. I don't know. I think they have a very good chance. I think
some really, really solid players, mate. Well, we'll see what happens. They've played well. I thought against the Aussies they were exceptional in defence. Really, really good.
Yeah, big time.
Bobby, is that all your questions?
Let me see. I wanted to
looking at his phone.
No, I had a lot of them. 2006 Stratford Centre Worlds.
Yeah.
A Canadian A-side final makes his way to the finals. Big production. His name was Luke Reimer, and he fitted his right to win a gold medal. What was your as a promoter?
Well, he wasn't gold. He was actually in the final, and he wasn't A-side. He was B-side.
Sorry, my mistake. Yep. My mistake. What was your initial reaction when he declined? Because I was shocked. I mean, everyone was shocked.
Utterly devastated, mate. Because Luke was a very, very, very good arm wrestler. I actually wanted to pull Luke myself that day. And ironically, the guy that I went out to, who was on the A side, the Uzbek, was then banned for steroids, and then had a following ban and was banned for life. So, you know, what can I say? It was actually it was a semi-final match that he was going into against Sharon Remez. Sharon Remez went on to face the Uzbek in the final. Could Luke have beaten Sharon? Quite possibly. Luke was a solid puller. I'm sure if he's still out there, guy's mega. He was offended by the dancing girls. Yeah. Each to their own. All I can say is that we didn't believe that there was anything to be offended about. The girls were professional dancers. They weren't scantily clad. They're actually wearing combat gear. They had combat pants. It was supposed to they'd worked on various routines, and in the finals it was about combat. So we had them in combat gear.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I thought it was tragic, but I think it was based on his religious beliefs. He had deep religious beliefs, but nothing was offended. That was a great show. That was a fantastic finals. Nothing about it was offensive. It's just like you said, he had a different take, but I just thought that was, as a Canadian who rarely gets to see, other than Ryan, a fellow Canadian get to the podium, it was sad.
Really was, and it's a shame that Luke's not still competing. The man was very, very solid. A really strong guy.
Great
nice
hand.
Well.
Great hand. Yeah.
Huge hand and really solid. Yeah, he was rock strong.
Yeah. We haven't heard from him for quite a while, so he's doing his thing, but not an arm wrestler any longer.
Yeah, a guy could pull. It's a damn shame. It really is. But as I say, he had the courage of his convictions. You can't knock that, can you?
Oh, no.
No.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, we've been on here for about an hour and 15 minutes, so
time flies when you have fun.
Exactly. And you know what? I feel like we got enough stuff to do another show later on in the future, if you're willing, that we never even got to, Neil. But
no problem, mate. Anytime. Not an issue. Thanks for the invite.
We appreciate you coming on the show very much.
Sorry, I'm half asleep. I've been on it since 5 a.m.
Yeah, no worries, man.
If I was a bit slow on some stuff, I put genuine apologies on it. And main thing is, as I say, guys, congratulations to you two for doing the show. Things like this always help. You know, if you're anything that is promoting arm wrestling, I think it's positive. I think it's a positive step. Yeah. And, it gets people talking, gets people out there wanting to do this thing. So, keep doing what you're doing. I hope it goes well, and I hope we have opportunities to discuss it next year, and World Arm Wrestling League's bigger and better.
Absolutely.
And if Arm Wars ever takes off again, like it could and should, Gabby versus Gobby, think about it. It could be massive.
On that note, I'm going to hit stop, guys.
Cheers, lads. Thank you.
Good night, Neil.